9 podcasts.
Baby.
Baby.
Talk.
Hi, baby.
So Lucy Olympia-Young is a mum of 3, including a set of twins. Yes, she's crazy and she's busy. And a track athlete turned perinatal exercise specialist. She's the founder of BUMPSTRONG, a strength-based training app that aims to redefine how women train through motherhood. So in her words, it's about no fluff, no fear, just smart, safe, expert-developed programming that meets women where they're at. Welcome to Baby
Welcome.
Lucy.
Thanks for such a lovely intro.
Yeah, it's nice hearing about yourself sometimes, isn't it? It's like,
yeah.
oh, I sound professional.
And a little synopsis. Yeah, it's nice.
So that's my version of events, but can
Yeah.
you give us a little background on who you are, what you do, what you've done, all that jazz?
Yes, so I mean, I'll probably repeat a bit of what you've
That's
said.
fine.
But yes, I am a perinatal exercise specialist. I've been working with pregnant and postpartum women for over a decade now. So a good chunk of time helping thousands of women through their gestation and then rehabilitating once they've had their bub. I am the founder of BUMPSTRONG. So we are fundamentally, we've got an app, but we also have in-person and online consults and PT. But we are very much about providing women with the education so that women can understand how their body is changing so they can be more empowered as they recover, and also to stay strong for mum life, because mum life requires, as you know, quite a bit of strength. And I am also mum to 3 at one stage, 3 under 2. So,
Wow.
or 2 in a few months. So yeah, it's chaos in our house. With Ocean is now 3 and the twins are 1. So
Ocean, I love
it's just
that
never
name.
a dull moment. It
It is a cool name, isn't it? She's a cool girl.
is Ocean, Koa and Maddox are my kidlets. But yeah, the twins are 1 now, which is just crazy to think how the first year, you know, regardless of if you've got multiples, is just so tumultuous. So we're very excited to have survived.
Congratulations.
Claps all around.
But yeah, and I competed in collegiate track and field in Canada, and then took a break, and then actually got back into it before I had my daughter Ocean, and since then I've kind of been back, had kids, back. So yeah, I'm like, the first time that I'm going to kind of have another crack, it will have been 2 years since I've raced, so I'll be racing in a few months.
Wow, we'll have to
God, where are
watch.
you racing.
Oh dear.
Can we watch this on the telly?
Yeah,
Popcorn.
well, especially if I do stall, you can probably watch it on the telly.
Oh my
but
God, this
let's
is so cool.
hope for the best. Yeah,
How
it's
exciting.
exciting. I love racing. And it's good once you get a few races under your belt, you kind of get into the swing of it.
Yeah.
It's just like ripping off the Band-Aid and having another crack now as a mum of 3.
Wow.
So each time it's very, it can be humbling at first, but I'm very competitive. So
You
I
go,
continue
girl.
to
That's so
have a crack
exciting.
at it.
So
Yeah.
what made you want
So how did you go? Sorry, Tay.
what made you want to start BUMPSTRONG then? Because obviously you've gone from being a professional athlete yourself into this next sort of genre in your life, which is motherhood. Was it becoming a mother that made you think there's such a niche in the market, or how did it all come about?
I mean, training women through, well, first and foremost, so many women don't understand what it means when they become pregnant in terms of training, and there's such a lack of understanding and lack of awareness. And in my experience, what I've seen is that a woman becomes pregnant and kind of either thing happens here. They either stop what they're doing and stop exercise altogether, or they kind of continue mindlessly, you know, sort of unsure but just plowing through anyway. And so what I kind of actually started BUMPSTRONG out of a bit of a frustration, because I felt like this just isn't good enough, really. There's not enough information. Women are so confused. There's quite a lot of fear-mongering around, you know, what's safe, what's not. Am I going to cause harm to my baby? And so that was a big driver behind, actually, even though I'd worked in a plethora of gyms with pregnant and postpartum women, actually starting something of my own was really because I was like, this just needs to be, there needs to be some sort of standardized place that people can go that gives them all this information. And it's really empowering when, you know, if someone tells you don't perform a sit-up or don't do this, but they don't actually explain any of the why behind any of that information. It leaves women still confused and still actually quite fearful. Whereas if you understand, okay, well, you know, let's talk about this connective tissue through your six-pack muscles. Let's imagine it like blue tack, okay? And as your belly grows and your baby gets bigger, that blue tack is stretching. Like if you're able to explain things in ways that people can break it down and dumb it down, then it means that there's less fear and less confusion, and women actually feel more empowered to get into a gym and pick up a dumbbell or, you know, whatever style of training that you enjoy. So
that's so great, because I remember I was obviously training quite a lot before falling pregnant. And then once I fell pregnant, I had a PT and it was a male, and I kind of was like, what am I allowed to do and not allowed to do? And he actually didn't even know. He said, that's probably something you'll need to talk to your doctor about or your specialist about. And I think it's really important, because I myself had that frustration of what is actually allowed and what is going to harm my baby. So it's pretty cool that you've created something that takes that stress away for women and mothers.
But I will say, like, I actually quite admire that was his response. I think it's really important to know
what you don't
know.
know.
To be able to vocalize what's outside of your scope and what's not. And, you know, if it's an area that you don't feel comfortable, you know, a lot of women when they go to group fitness classes are asking for alternatives. You know, I can't, if it's a Pilates, I'm not sure if I can do that. And I really encourage trainers to, if it is outside your wheelhouse, to actually be able to be open and say, you know what, I actually am unsure, but I do encourage you to, you know, reach out to somebody who does, or, you know, hit up BUMPSTRONG. Because that's also where we can perpetuate a lot of misinformation is people trying to kind of step in and give advice that they themselves are not quite sure of.
Thanks for listening to Baby Talk. We talk a lot about today's victories here, so I think we should tell you about the place you can visit where victories can be found on every shelf. We're talking about baby bunting, of course. Now, they know those special moments you have with your baby are everything, and they want to keep the special coming. That's why they're always bringing you great value across everything you need for your little one or little ones. There's big savings on feeding, car seats, prams, and all the essentials that helps your family thrive. Finding a great deal on the perfect item will be today's victory. Baby Bunting's Cyber Month sale is on now. Shop in-store or online today. So on that, what do you think some of the bigger myths are? What are sort of the main things that you think people get wrong? Let's say, for example, with exercise and pregnancy. Let's start with that. What are the big myths there?
Yeah, there's so many.
All of them.
There's so many. One that I see or hear a lot of is that you can't try anything new.
Yeah, I heard that.
And what I would say on that is, you know, when we speak about not starting anything new during pregnancy, we're talking, and sort of the rationale behind where a lot of that comes from is we're talking about if you were previously a super uncoordinated person, you had terrible balance, you literally could not like stand on one foot.
My child.
And then you become pregnant. And you think halfway through your pregnancy, you're like, I'm going to take up road cycling. Yes. You know, we're talking something that's like quite drastic and quite potentially harmful if you were to fall off your bike and have a big accident. But when we look at, you know, not starting anything new, that does not pertain to, if you were previously a sedentary person, you can most definitely start an exercise regime. It's like anything. You don't start a bull at a gate. You're progressively building up your muscles, your joints, your ligaments to adapt to that new load. And it's important that it's really progressive in its approach. So yeah, that's one that I hear so often that gets my goat. Yeah. And I think any blanket statement as well is quite ridiculous. We hear a lot of like, don't lift more than 20 kgs over your head. Don't let your heart rate go over 140 beats per minute. And what that often does is it removes the fact that we are all so individual. And we all come from different strength backgrounds. We all have different resting heart rates. And so it just even logically doesn't make sense that we prescribe every woman the same general parameters. So if you ever hear something like that, I definitely encourage you to have some alarm bells go off and ask more questions, because it's not how it works.
The thing that got me during pregnancy and exercise was not doing any sort of core strength and ab work. And I feel like, I feel like that's absolutely not correct. I see the way that you trained throughout both your pregnancies.
Yeah. Core, a lot of people misunderstand what your core is. And so, and ironically, you know, when people say don't perform sit-ups during pregnancy, the most recent research actually suggests that it doesn't increase interecti distance, or that separation between your rectus or your six-pack muscles. So it's really just about it's about pressure management if you are performing sit-ups, but it's really about seeking out somebody who's up to date with the most recent information as well, because there's so much old school info out there, and it's definitely time we change the narrative. But your six-pack is not your entire core.
It's good to hear that, because I had quite a large separation in the abs, and I had a little bit of guilt thinking it was because I was training and doing exercise. So it's kind of nice to hear that maybe it wasn't that, and it was just the fact that I was growing a child inside me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think as well, when we're pregnant, interestingly, I've got a client right now who is quite hung up on, you know, her abdominal separation. And when we're pregnant, like, abdominal separation is a natural adaptation to pregnancy. Our six-pack or our rectus muscles need to separate, obviously, to allow for space for baby. So becoming so preoccupied and stressed about it when we're pregnant is a little bit of a waste of time, to be honest. Naturally, there'll be a degree of diastasis healing postpartum, and then there are, of course, things that we need to watch for, and also ways we can train to help support reducing that interecti distance.
And what about postpartum then? What are some myths around that? Do we have to wait for the 6 weeks or for the 12 weeks, all that jazz?
Yeah. There's not a blanket rule in terms of when every woman is prepared to return to training. The 6 week, it can take about 6 weeks just for your uterus to contract back to its pre-baby size. And a lot of women start to feel more mobile and more themselves at around that 6 weeks, which is when many women then go and receive their sign-off from their OB or their doctor. But what I would say is, when you are feeling, so if a women's health physio can actually see you, many of them can see you from about 4 weeks, depending on how you're healing and that kind of thing. But seeking a women's health physio sign-off is a much more prescriptive way to have an in-depth evaluation on whether or not you're ready to start back with training. The biggest mistake that I see with women postpartum is trying to jump back into their pre-baby training almost immediately.
Yeah.
When they've gotten that sign-off, without sort of laying the foundation and, you know, making sure that they've built deep core strength, making sure their pelvic floor is responsive, they've got good pressure strategies and pressure management strategies. So there's a lot that goes into like that foundational element before we then obviously jump back into a group fitness class, which isn't geared towards you at 9 weeks or 8 weeks. It's not remembering, or doesn't know what you've just done. It's for the general pop. So
I feel like you're speaking to my soul right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at you because I'm like,
listen,
9 weeks.
I've already put the call out. Hey guys, where can I do a Pilates class? Maybe I need to start slow.
So like Lana, there's obviously new mothers listening. What would be your suggestion then for easing back into exercise? What are some of the tools that they can be using?
Easing back into exercise, I would really focus first on how you breathe is a very fundamental and often overlooked element of rehabilitation. So making sure when we are, in these feeding positions and we're in these rounded shoulder positions, we can have quite a fixed or locked upper back. We also develop forward head posture.
It's making me sit up straight.
So mobility drills that help open up the chest, mobility that helps with a lot of these really repetitive positions can be really great when we are starting to ease back into training. Also making sure there's something that I call the 3 Ps, so pressure, peeing, and pain. And they're essentially ways in which that when you're starting to get back to moving, you're looking out for these 3 Ps as indicators as to whether or not you need to potentially pull back. You might need to change the exercise. So the first one is pressure. So if you feel sort of vaginal heaviness, you feel discomfort, excessive abdominal coning, which is where, you know, you've got like a Toblerone shape down the center line of your stomach. We can talk about coning till the cows come home, but I'm saying excessive coning. Some coning here and there can be okay, but these pressure issues indicate that, okay, well, our core, our pelvic floor might be struggling to handle what we're asking of it. The second P is for peeing. So incontinence indicates that there's pelvic floor dysfunction. It's not something that we just put up with. Despite the number of times I've heard mums be like, I've had 3 kids. Of like, of course I pee myself.
You're like,
and
me
like,
too,
no,
and twins.
it does not need to be that way. And then pain is the last one. So pain, we typically tend to pull back anyway if we experience levels of pain. But, you know, postpartum, that could be if you've had a cesarean, you know, pain at the incision site. Maybe you're experiencing low back pain. It doesn't necessarily mean in all cases of the 3 Ps that we stop exercise altogether, but it just means that we need to like reassess, okay, what might be happening here. But yeah, that's definitely what I would say to a new mum looking to return to training, looking out for these things.
There has been a lot of chat, especially recently, given a specific little viral video that a man decided to put into the universe. But what is your take on bounce back culture and I guess the pressure that women have to get back to what they were?
Yeah, I mean, bounce back. Women don't bounce anywhere. We're not basketballs. But I don't subscribe to the bounce back rhetoric. I think it places a huge amount of stress on many women. I also don't believe that we should be chasing our pre-baby body. We have physiologically changed with birth, and that's not even to say, like, that's not a negative thing. To say that we have changed forever after we've had a baby. That's not. I've got clients who've actually find their core is stronger after having a baby. Why? Because before the baby, they never really had to place much of an emphasis or focus on core strength, inner and outer core strength. So it's not to say that it could be a negative thing. I don't believe that video landed very well at all. There is a lot of research to back that training during pregnancy is, of course, a very positive thing, but not all women can train during pregnancy for a plethora of reasons. But also in terms of rehabilitation, it doesn't land well to sort of promise that a woman will look the same as she did before she had her baby. Postpartum, when many women have different births, many women heal even just naturally their diastasis or their abdominal separation differently. A woman might have had, a fair degree of pelvic floor trauma and, might be struggling with how they manage pressure in a lower belly pouch because of a plethora of different things. So it's just too simplistic to kind of say that, if you train during pregnancy, I promise that you will look like X. It just didn't land. I don't think that's my take on it. I don't believe in bounce back. I do think that there's a benefit to training during pregnancy if you can.
For sure.
But it's not the be all to end all in terms of your body, I guess.
No, and I will also say, like, with the twins, I might have trained right up until I had the twins, but I was like sick as a dog in the first trimester. Like with multiples, your hormones are out of whack.
You
and
are
so
not
I was
okay.
feeling very sorry for myself in that first trimester. And people often, I think when they see even my content on how I trained, I think they have this sort of perception as though I was, bouncing off the walls in the first trimester. And I started back training in the second trimester. So
how did you find that? How did you find that motivation then? Because I know there were lots of days where I just could not be bothered even walking from the car to the shopping centre to get groceries. So for women that are also struggling through that, is there tools that we can do? Should we just maybe do stretching instead, or how do we find that motivation?
Yeah, I believe that planning and routine can be really helpful.
This works for you, Tayla.
If you are somebody that struggles with that element of things, The reason being that if you kind of wake up each day and you say, oh, at some point today I'll do a workout,
This is
the
me.
number of times I've seen with clients that workout never takes place.
Never, ever.
It's just, and also if there's no, say you're not really a morning person and you say, okay, I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm going to set my alarm really early and I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do a workout.
Definitely.
But there's no real prescription as to
When.
what workout you're going to do. Then not only does it make it harder to wake up at that time, but then when you do actually go into your gym, you're tired and you're asking yourself to fabricate something out of nothing.
Yes.
So what I do with many of my clients is we look at the week and we look at, when are realistic time slots to potentially try and have a crack at a training session. And it's not to say that there are going to be some days that it doesn't happen, and that happens to me as well. If the kids are sick, we've got no family support in Australia. So if the kids are sick or my partner has meetings, it's all on me to stop whatever I'm doing. The same thing for Max. But when it doesn't work out, you kind of have a crack again the next day. It's just about the consistency of it, but then also making sure that, okay, that on Mondays you're going to try and do your weight session, and on Tuesdays you're going to maybe try for a run, and then looking at your time slots. So if you're, you're still working, so say you weren't, working, or even if you were and you knew that at 9 a.m. your baby does their most reliable nap, well then that's when you're potentially thinking, doesn't have to be a 2-hour session, but you might be thinking, okay, I'm going to try, right when I put them down, I'm going to try for a 20-minute movement. And movement can be so many ways, shapes or forms. Yes, if you're struggling with motivation, mobility can definitely make you feel like a new human if that's kind of all you got in the tank as well, because there's a reality of mum life can be exhausting and we can operate off of very little sleep. So it's not that it's going to look the same every single day, but planning makes a huge difference. Even in the way that I operate, I know that on set days I've got planned set workouts, and if some days they don't happen, but at least the plan is there.
And how do you balance what you just touched on, whether you need to rest and recover or push yourself to move to then feel better? I feel like that's always such a fine line. It's do I actually need to just skip the workout and sleep today? Or am I going to feel a shit ton better if I, do some squats or some stretching or go for a walk in the sun?
Yeah. Being ready to be flexible is a really big skill, I think, as a mum.
I'm not looking at anyone in particular.
Learning that, you can have the best of intentions and potentially, that day you are in struggle city and you go to start your workout and you're like, what, today I was supposed to do a high intensity session, but I have 0 in my tank. Yeah. So instead, I might perform a strength session that allows me to have a lot of rest between sets. And it doesn't mean that it needs to be super long. Often we find that after 10 to 15 minutes, you pretty much know whether or not you're into it or not. And there are days, and there's some days that I have a crack at a session and I know after 10 minutes, hey, it's not happening today. But you got to be honest and real with that kind of stuff because that's the reality that a lot of us face. But having the best of intentions and being prepared to be malleable and shift what was potentially originally intended because you're operating off of no sleep. I always ask clients when they come in, how was your sleep last night? Because I know that I might need to change. If we've got a session on the bike that's intended to get their heart rate up here and they, feel absolutely wrecked or maybe they're really down that day, well, I'm not going to put them on the bike to
cook them even
cook
more.
them. Yeah.
You talk about being a believer in no fluff advice, and I guess that kind of plays into what you were just talking about. If you could give out any no fluff advice that people wouldn't take as an offense, what would it be?
That peeing yourself is not normal. Because I think I was speaking about it before. We kind of laugh about incontinence. But we shouldn't be laughing about it because it indicates there's an issue.
Of course.
Yeah.
And incontinence is common, but it's not normal. So that's one thing that can actually strangely offend some people. I think, our parents and maybe our parents' parents grew up in a generation where that was just kind of like, oh, that's normal.
I remember mum's
you've
friends,
had a
if
lot
they
of
would
kids.
bounce on the trampoline, they'd be like, oh, I'm going to pee myself. And I would think as a kid, that's weird, but okay.
Yeah. Or if someone's laughing super
Yeah.
hard and, you know, I mean, and, you know, there'd probably be a time and a place where everyone is like, oh, God, that's a bit funny. But, get checked. That's, not normal. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for mums who are struggling to sort of get back into that exercise routine? You said, obviously, you know, if they're doing a good nap in the morning, try and aim for that 20 minutes in the morning. Is that a matter of doing something at home rather than, I guess, biting off more than you can chew and going to a gym or going to a group fitness class? What are some tactics that people can use? Because you would especially know, having 3 kids, it's not always that easy to get out of the house.
Or take your
Yeah,
kids
and
to a
it's-
gym.
Yeah, not many gyms are that
can't do it.
kid-friendly
No,
either.
It's true. And oh my God, if I took all my 3 to the gym, they'd be like,
Shut
"We're
the
just
gym
cancelling
down."
your membership.
You're
Get
black
outta
banned
here.
forever.
For sure. Well, it's a big reason behind why our app doesn't require you to have a fancy gym set up.
Yeah.
Because having minimal equipment, you don't need a million things in order to make a workout happen.
Yeah.
You essentially need like a chair, you need potentially 1 pair of dumbbells, and you might need a mini stability ball. So it's I suppose looking at that time frame, be it 9:30, and setting aside a spot in your living room, or if it's a nice day outside, and just going for it in that little window, that can be quite helpful. Yes, of course, there are gyms that have creches, but like you were saying, they can be few and far between. But still looking in your area, because sometimes actually leaving the house
Is good.
Yeah, it can be really beneficial. With our in-person, that's also why we've got like a playpen and stuff, or as my partner calls it, the cage. We've got a children's cage.
I had one of them. They're amazing.
They're
Until they
so
learn how to
good,
climb
especially
out
with
of
the
it.
twins. Yeah. Especially when the twins started crawling, because I was like, this is just hell.
no.
Chaos.
I don't know where you guys have
They're
gone.
going 2 different directions.
Yeah.
No thanks.
But yeah, having at home a few pieces of equipment and sort of removing the thought process that you need to have a full-fledged fancy setup can actually just empower you as well a little bit to get started.
Is the recovery different for people who have a vaginal delivery versus C-section? And does one person need to take it slower than the other?
There are different considerations.
Yeah.
So we need to remember that a vaginal delivery oftentimes is a high degree of perineal trauma, or perineum being that space between the vagina and the anus.
The gooch.
The gooch. Did you do? Yeah, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. So there can be a high degree of perineal trauma. But then also a cesarean has it's major abdominal surgery, major abdominal surgery. So yes, there are different considerations, because when you have a vaginal birth, we need to then be more mindful on, whether or not you're placing excess strain downwards onto an area which is trying to recover and rehab. And then also with a cesarean, we have without getting too sciencey here, we have a muscular sling that crosses the front of our body, and it sort of activates through co-contraction of certain muscle groups. But when we have a cesarean, it can be very severely disrupted, and so there are very specific exercises that can also help us get this anterior sling back on board to allow our core to be super functional. So yes, for the most part, we need to build the foundation the same in terms of how we breathe during exercise, exhaling on effort, making sure that we're mindful of like those 3 Ps. But then just from a consideration standpoint, there can be more prescriptive exercises, say, that rehab a cesarean versus a vaginal birth. But yeah, I don't want to go too complicated.
No, I like
I'm liking the science behind it.
You're like, now I'm going to bore people.
And now I know sometimes when I go too far into a subject, I'm really into it, but people are like, okay, now we've tapped out. Yeah.
Watching the ceiling.
Now we've tapped out. Yeah.
If you could give a piece of advice or a message to mothers listening in the kind of mindset of if they're feeling disconnected to their body, or they feel, because I know personally when I had Samara, my body changed a lot, but I kind of saw it as a positive way and it made me slow down a lot. But for a lot of people, they feel that disconnection. It could even be that maybe they're can't even get my words out. Maybe they're postnatal and they're feeling that real sort of out of body experience. What messages do you have for them to reconnect with their body?
Yeah, I mean, I can totally relate to what you're saying. When I first had Ocean, my 3-year-old, was the first time, I think because I've always done sport, after I had her was the first time that I really felt that I'd seen myself. I wouldn't say out of shape, because of course I was postpartum, like we've just grown a baby, but I've seen my body quite different to how I'd remembered it. And similar to, many women, I remember even being performing step-ups after I had her in the garage, and it was in front of a mirror and just bursting into tears because I was like, I don't even recognize who this person is. Like, you used to do sport and now you look like that. Like, it was very confronting, which now looking back, it feels almost ironic because my body changed so much more with twins.
Yeah, okay.
And so, and in ways in which I don't believe I can ever potentially shift, because you can't change things like skin.
Of course.
Unless you, of course, have a
I guess you can if you want to chop it up.
That's it. But what I would say is connecting to function and what your body can do can really remove a lot of the stress on aesthetics and the way your body looks. And that's definitely something that I focus on a lot, whether it's track, whether it's lifting in the gym, looking at, okay, what is my body capable of, and kind of placing more of the emphasis on performance versus, oh, look at my skin here, it's kind of like hanging over. On the days that I'm feeling quite low about if I'm low about body image on that day, that's what I try and like focus on. And so, if you don't do sport, it can pertain to any sort of day-to-day activity, whether or not it's, you've started a strength program and suddenly you can walk up a really steep hill with your pram, or you can hold your baby in a big heavy bag of groceries at the same time. It's focusing on like, oh God, I never could do that before. Like, look at me, I'm strong. Like, as a
look
mom.
at my ability. Yeah.
Ability can, I use the word pressure because there's a lot of pressure on looking a certain way, and we tend to almost, I believe, glorify the pregnant body. When you're pregnant, we're kind of like, wow, you're glowing. Like,
you look amazing.
You look amazing.
Super
How
mama.
beautiful are you? And we don't do that to postpartum bodies the same way. And it's quite sad because we've literally grown a human.
Yeah, that's when we should get the medal afterwards.
That's 100%. But if anything, it's, women suddenly feel this huge pressure to, which was the issue with that video that you were speaking about before, this huge pressure to look the way that they did before. And so focusing on how you can actually connect your body to function and what it can do can remove a fair bit of that stress. That's the first thing that I would definitely say can be helpful. Even there are little tiny things that can also help, like when you're putting on body lotion. I used to have a client, I used to say, every time you're putting it on, I want you to really like think about that body part. This sounds very like
sexual.
Mindfulness.
We're like, we're on board.
But like almost like complimenting yourself. And on the days that you are feeling good, being able to vocalize it, you're in the vicinity of your four walls of your house, but actually vocalizing that, if you've got kids, like especially little girls listening to, like they play into that. Like if I'm like, oh my God, my hair looks great today.
I am on fire.
It sounds so like jarring because we're not used to kind of doing that, but I can guarantee that like that actually plays your brain stores that somewhere.
Yeah.
So on the days that you are feeling low, you're kind of like, oh,
At least my hair looks good
day today. Yeah, my hair looked great yesterday though, so let's hold on to that.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And can I just say a shout out, because you won't shout out yourself, but if anyone's looking for motivation, follow Lucy on Instagram, because if I'm like a potato on the couch, I go on her stories and she's like, I've just done, 50 track sprints and blah, blah, blah. And she's like out there in the sunshine sprinting, and I'm eating Doritos on the couch. So it's really, it's
good motivation.
Influence. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so
We're
much.
really lucky to get
guys.
this expertise, and I will be signing up to Bump Strong as soon as I leave
Yeah,
the studio.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much, guys. So awesome to chat with you.